Next speaker today is Ed Grasso. Please come up.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. There's a little known fact among some professional speakers. This fact is ignored by most speakers. This fact, if mastered, can at least quadruple your effectiveness as a speaker. This fact is those transitions that you create when you're organizing your speech between your points. Those transitions are equally as important as your content. I see a few raised eyebrows, so let me explain. If your content is like the meat and potatoes of your presentation, then your transitions are like the digestive enzymes, helping your audience to absorb and assimilate what you said. I don't care how great your content is. If there's no mechanism to assimilate it, not only are you going to have a less effective speech, most likely your message will be lost forever. It's critically important to have some kind of assimilation mechanism. Transitions just happen to be in the perfect place. They live between the points, and they can help the audience absorb those points. What I'd like to do with you today is talk to you about 3 ways that you can improve your transitions for this assimilation process. First, separating your points. 2, getting the audience to relax and reflect on the points. And 3, helping the audience by motivating them to participate in the next point. Let's start with the first one, separating your points. You've all heard good music. Music isn't nope, 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 nope. There's spaces in between the notes. That's where you get the melody. It's the same thing with our speeches. We need a lot of space between those points. When I say a lot of space, I mean a few seconds. Now, one way to get space is just simply to tell them. It's the end of that particular point. For example, I could say, ladies and gentlemen, let me wrap up this point by telling you why it is so important. Now they know it's separate. You can also separate your points physically. You could tell point 1 over here, and then you could tell point 2 over here. You get physical separation. You could also get vocal separation. For example, if I wanted to tell 2 stories, I could take on a different voice in the dialogue of one story versus the other. Now, let me wrap up this point. If you don't do this, point 1 goes into point 2, goes into point 3, and it's totally undigestible. People won't remember it. It's too complex. You're not going to get there. Let me talk about the second point here to improve your transitions, and that is to relax the audience and help them reflect. I have a friend of mine who's a long-distance swimmer, and he swims, then they tell him to rest for exactly 17 seconds. Swim and rest for 17 seconds. And keep doing that, he can go forever. We need to get that small amount of time for our audiences to relax, to break the tension of the thought that they're trying to work on. They got to relax. Now, the simplest way to get them to relax is when you're going from point 1, I'll do my New York, to point 2, don't say anything. A long pause. Just give it the opportunity to just sink in. Another thing you can do is do a direct request to the audience to reflect on it. Ladies and gentlemen, this point is so important. I want you to just spend the next few seconds reflecting on it. In fact, take out a piece of paper and a pencil and write down 2 ideas about it. Give them a chance to think about it. It helps the assimilation. Most professional speakers like to use transitions with humor or something amusing. It breaks that tension of the thought. For example, I could have said, go into 1 to go into 2, point 2. I said, Point two is important, but you don't have to do the New York walk. Okay? It's just anything. It doesn't even have to, the humor doesn't even have to match the message. It just has to break the tension. If we don't do this, we run into trouble. The audience need to relax, to allow them to digest what you're saying. The last point I want to make today is that you must motivate in your transitions the audience to want to talk about that next point, or participate. We all practice our speeches, hopefully. We know where we are as speakers, and we know where we're going all the time. But our audiences are hearing it for the first time. So you got to constantly tell them where you are and where you're going to help them digest. Not only you want to tell them where the next point is, you want to kind of motivate them. For example, when I'm in a good restaurant, I love to look at the dessert menus. Now, I always don't have the dessert, but you know, this might not be a convincing argument. But if I see something there that I really want, like a new way to do tiramisu, I'll order it. And I'll eat it because I'm excited, I want to hear it. You want to get your audiences excited about that next point. So you can say something like, ladies and gentlemen, the first 2 points were great. This next one is going to be a huge surprise. You're going to really blow your socks off when you hear this one. So get them excited to go to that point. Let me wrap up our conversation for this morning. As speakers, we want our audiences to either think, know, feel, or do something different. The way we go about doing that is we give them a message to carry out, to remember, kind of like an anchor to remember all the information. Today, the message is simply this: your transitions are equal to your content. Now, the consequences are quite simple. You could be like most speakers and ignore it and run the risk of having messages that are undigestible and the possibility of losing your message forever. Or you can work at putting your transitions in good shape, and it is a lot of work, as much work as your content. And then you'll have better messages. Okay? And the probability that your message will be retained by your audiences. So, ladies and gentlemen, the choice is yours. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.